Welcome back, Coinology. In the silent corridors of time, among billions of humble copper coins that once jingled in pockets and purses across America, there exists one small piece of metal that tells a story far greater than its face value. The 1973 Lincoln cent, 1 cent of the United States of America, stands not only as a piece of currency but as a tiny witness to a nation's industrial evolution, economic change, and the artistic legacy of Abraham Lincoln's enduring image. As simple as it may seem, this little coin has traveled through decades of human hands, carrying with it whispers of history, secrets of design, and the possibility of unimaginable worth. What was once worth just a penny has now become a symbol of collectors' dreams, a relic that in rare conditions and certain varieties is believed to reach an astonishing market valuation, rumored to touch the extraordinary figure of $4,800 million in the fantasy realm of numismatic fascination. To understand why, one must step back into the early 1970s, an era of change, conflict, and progress. The year 1973 was a chapter of transition for the United States. The Vietnam War was winding down, the oil crisis loomed just beyond the horizon, and the American economy was shifting its focus from post-war abundance to modern industrial restructuring. Inflation had begun to test the resilience of the dollar, and every coin that emerged from the U.S. Mint represented not just a monetary instrument but a reflection of national confidence. In that landscape, the Lincoln cent, long trusted, long familiar, continued its mission as the nation's smallest yet most enduring coin. It was a time before the copper to zinc change of the 1980s, a time when each cent contained a core of genuine copper, heavy with history and rich in color. The 1973 penny was born from that copper age, its body composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing exactly 3.11 grams. That precise balance had been the standard since 1962, and each piece was carefully struck at one of three mint facilities, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Imagine the rhythmic clanging of presses echoing through the great minting halls, blank copper discs sliding into mechanical jaws, being transformed under immense pressure into portraits of the 16th president. On the obverse, the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln gazes eternally forward, his profile sculpted by Victor David Brenner more than 6 decades earlier in 1909. Above his head, the words "I and God we trust" appear in unwavering faith. To his left, the word "Liberty." To the right, the date 1973, sometimes accompanied by a tiny mint mark, a simple letter like DRS, signifying its birthplace in Denver or San Francisco. Below it all, Brenner's initials VDB, discreetly resting on the shoulder cutoff, reminding us of the artist's hand that created the most recognized portrait in American numismatics. Turn it over, and the reverse tells another story. The Lincoln Memorial stretches across the field, an architectural echo of Washington, D.C., rendered in miniature perfection. Designed by Frank Gasparo in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, this design replaced the earlier wheat-ear motif that had graced the reverse for 50 years. Look closely, and even on the tiniest scale, you can see the seated figure of Lincoln himself between the columns, a coin within a coin, a sculpture within a sculpture. Above, the proud legend United States of America. Below, the denomination 1 cent. And above the memorial, the national motto E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. Every 1973 cent embodies these words: many struck, one nation, a unity of purpose and history. But the deeper story of the 1973 penny begins when collectors look beyond the ordinary. For the numismatist, every variation, every anomaly, every slight deviation from perfection can transform a commonplace coin into a treasure. In 1973, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 3.7 billion cents, Denver more than 3.5 billion, and San Francisco West Mint proof coins numbered around 2.76 million. With such staggering quantities, the odds of rarity might seem small, yet history shows that within the vast sea of copper, hidden gems do emerge: double dies, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, and coins struck on wrong planchets have all been discovered among 1973 cents. Each error, each unique imperfection, tells its own story and adds to the legend of the coin's potential worth. Picture one of these pennies, gleaming fresh from the press, sliding down the conveyor to be counted and bagged. For most, that journey ended in cash registers, bus fares, or children's piggy banks. But for a lucky few, those same coins escaped wear and oxidation, resting untouched in mint sets or forgotten rolls, preserved like time capsules. Decades later, collectors would open them to discover flawless red luster, mirror-like fields, and sharply struck details, a perfect window into 1973. When graded by professional services such as PCGS or NGC at the highest levels, MS67 red or above, these coins transcend their humble origin, fetching hundreds or even thousands of dollars. It is from such extremes of rarity and perfection that mythical valuations are born, the whispered tales of a single specimen rumored to be worth not thousands but billions, an exaggeration perhaps, yet one that captures the imagination of treasure seekers around the world. Beyond its numismatic intrigue, the 1973 cent is also a reflection of American artistry. Victor Brenner's portrait of Lincoln remains one of the most enduring designs in world coinage, second only to ancient monarchs in longevity. When Brenner first sculpted the bust, he sought to capture Lincoln not as a distant icon but as a man of thought, determination, and humility. The delicate modeling of Lincoln's hair, the stern yet compassionate expression, and the soft curvature of his coat all speak of a realism uncommon in coins of that era. Even decades later, under the brilliant press of 1973, Brenner's art retained its integrity. The dies, though worn from countless strikes, still carried his vision faithfully, proving that great art can survive the passage of time. Even when reduced to the size of a fingertip, the copper of these coins carries a deeper resonance too. Pure copper, when newly struck, glows with a reddish-orange brilliance. Over time, it darkens, taking on tones of brown, red, and finally deep chocolate. Each stage tells a part of the coin's life, each hue a story of touch, air, and age. When collectors describe a coin as red, red-brown, or brown, they are not merely noting color, they are recording time itself. To hold a 1973 Lincoln cent that still burns bright red is to hold a moment of 1973 itself, as if the press had struck it only yesterday. The year also marked subtle shifts in minting technology. The U.S. These transitions sometimes introduced minute differences in design sharpness or surface texture between coins of different mints. Specialists note that the 1973 S proof cents, struck with polished dies on specially prepared planchets, display extraordinary mirror fields and frosted devices, giving them an almost sculptural depth. Such proofs, when perfectly preserved, embody the pinnacle of mint craftsmanship, a far cry from the worn pocket change most people remember. What makes the 1973 cent so fascinating is not only its physical form but the way it connects generations. A coin that might have purchased a stick of gum in 1973 could today rest in a collector's display case, admired for its simplicity and history. In its lifetime, it has witnessed the rise of digital currency, the decline of cash usage, and yet, it remains a tangible link to the tactile economy of the past. The stories told by old pennies about who held them, what they bought, how far they traveled, are part of a silent history written not in books but in metal. Each 1973 cent is a storyteller, whispering of a time when copper was still plentiful and every coin mattered, and yet, beyond the beauty and nostalgia, there lies the question that captures every viewer's imagination: could this small coin really be worth millions or even billions today? In collector lore, some claim that hidden prototypes or experimental strikes exist, coins struck on aluminum or foreign planchets, or those accidentally struck with mismatched dies. It is this blend of fact and mystery that transforms the ordinary 1973 cent into a legend, a story that keeps collectors searching through jars, attics, and old rolls in hopes of finding the one that could change everything. When we look at this single coin under a magnifying glass, we see not just metal, but human endeavor, the engraving of Brenner, the innovation of Gasparo, the labor of mint workers, and the aspirations of an entire era. As time advanced beyond 1973, the humble penny continued its quiet existence, passing through millions of hands, across counters and registers, through decades of commerce and change. Yet within this great tide of movement, certain examples escaped circulation, hidden away in mint rolls, sealed in proof sets, or forgotten in drawers, awaiting rediscovery. Decades later, as numismatics flourished in the digital age, collectors began to look again at those small pieces of copper with renewed eyes. What once seemed ordinary became extraordinary when viewed through magnification and light, each minute detail telling a story about the machinery, the precision, and the moments that defined the minting year of 1973. Inside the mints themselves, the atmosphere of that era can still be imagined, the roaring press halls, the scent of lubricated steel, the shimmer of polished dyes reflecting the glow of factory lamps. Workers in gloves handled coins that had yet to meet the public, some destined for circulation, others for proof sets sent to collectors. Each struck piece represented perfection attempted through mechanical means, and within those countless strikes lay the inevitable imperfections that make numismatics such a fascinating study. The 1973 cents from Denver, marked with their distinct D beneath the date, often displayed stronger strikes and deeper luster than their Philadelphia counterparts, a testament to Denver's efficient minting equipment. Yet, even so, small differences in die polish, planchet quality, or alignment could result in subtle varieties, details that collectors decades later would scrutinize under microscopes. Chasing the elusive combination of rarity and beauty, the San Francisco Mint, known for its proofs, created a class apart. The 1973 S-proof Lincoln cents were struck multiple times with specially prepared dies to achieve razor-sharp details and mirrored backgrounds so reflective that they appeared almost liquid. When a viewer tilts such a coin beneath the light, Lincoln's face seems to emerge from darkness, his silhouette glowing as if from within. These proofs, often preserved in their original government packaging, are among the most breathtaking examples of mint artistry ever produced. And yet, even in the precision of proof coins, anomalies sometimes occur: small die chips, double lettering, or traces of die polishing that create unique personalities within an otherwise uniform population. Collectors soon learned that grading would become the language of value. Every nick, every spot, every touch of oxidation could separate a common coin from a treasure. In the grading scale, the difference between MS66 red and MS67 red might seem trivial to the untrained eye, but to experts, it meant the difference between a coin worth tens of dollars and one that could command thousands. The pursuit of that perfection became a passion, a science, even an obsession. Collectors used microscopes, digital cameras, and specialized lighting to reveal the hidden world of their coins, searching for double dies, especially in the inscriptions Liberty or I in God We Trust, or small die cracks that might mark a transitional phase in the die's life. Such errors, while accidental, became the fingerprints of history. The mystery deepened with rumors and discoveries of experimental planchets, cents that might have been struck on materials other than copper. Over the decades, stories emerged of Lincoln cents mistakenly struck on aluminum, steel, or even foreign coin blanks. In the lore of coin collecting, these anomalies inspire the greatest excitement, for they are tangible proof of human error within an otherwise perfect system. For 1973, official records show no aluminum cents were authorized, yet whispers of such experimental strikes persist, whispered across collector forums, described in auction catalogs, and debated at numismatic conventions. Whether myth or reality, such stories amplify the legend of the year, suggesting that somewhere, hidden in a private hoard or family collection, might lie a piece unlike any other, one cent that defies explanation, its material perhaps lighter, its tone slightly different under light, a ghost of the mint's secret experiments. But the fascination with the 1973 cent is not only technical. It also speaks to nostalgia, an emotional connection to the past that gives even a simple object extraordinary meaning. People who held these coins in their youth remember a time of drive-in theaters, muscle cars, and handwritten letters. A single coin from 1973 can trigger those memories, a tangible relic of an America that once was. To touch that coin is to touch the same metal that passed through the hands of a gas station clerk, a schoolchild saving for candy, or a soldier returning home. Money, in its physical form, carries traces of human life, and every penny bears invisible imprints of countless moments die in the present day. Collectors have turned their gaze once more toward the pennies of the 1970s, a decade that straddles two eras, the heavy copper coinage of the past and the lighter zinc-based coinage that began in 1982. The 1973 cent sits squarely in that copper tradition, its intrinsic metal value rising over the years as copper itself became more expensive. At times, the melt value of a single penny's copper content approached 2 cents, making it technically worth more as metal than as money. Laws prohibit the melting of cents for profit, but the thought persists that each one carries a hidden worth beyond face value. This paradox, that a penny could be simultaneously ordinary and valuable, captures the imagination and gives rise to myths of extraordinary prices, sometimes exaggerated into fantastical sums, yet rooted in a real sense of wonder. The journey of any individual coin is unknowable. Some 1973 cents traveled across continents, some were lost in car seats, some buried in the soil, and some remain sealed in airtight slabs, pristine and untouched. Each path is a fragment of history. And as decades pass, the number of untouched coins diminishes, leaving fewer examples in perfect condition. The scarcity that time creates becomes part of their value. Coins that remain bright, copper red, and flawless under magnification are celebrated as survivors, chosen relics of a world that has long since moved on. When such a coin crosses an auction block, it is no longer just metal, it is history preserved, a bridge between mint and market, between past and present. Collectors often speak of the eye appeal of a coin, the mysterious quality that makes one example stand out among many. It may be the glow of its color, the precision of its strike, or the balance of its toning. A perfect 1973 cent glimmers with the warm fire of copper, reflecting the ambition and optimism of its age. Under strong light, the field seemed to ripple like molten metal, the details of Lincoln's hair sharp and sculptural, the lettering crisp and deep. It bears the face of Abraham Lincoln, one of the most revered figures in American history. His portrait has appeared on the cent since 1909, making it the longest-running coin design in the United States. For generations, schoolchildren learned to recognize Lincoln first not in portraits or textbooks, but on the small copper coin in their pocket. The penny became more than currency, it became a symbol of honesty, humility, and perseverance. When someone said, "A penny for your thoughts," they invoked not just the coin but the spirit of sharing and curiosity. The 1973 issue continues that legacy, connecting the ideals of Lincoln's time with the evolving America of the 1970s. Meanwhile, in the world of high-end collectors, stories circulate of the most remarkable 1973 cents ever found. Some recount discoveries of flawless proof coins with mirror-like surfaces untouched by air, their red luster so pure it seems to glow from within the plastic cases that protect them. Others speak of mistruck specimens where a second impression shifted the design slightly, creating ghost images of Lincoln's face or doubled letters that dance under light. Each discovery adds another layer to the mythology, fueling a sense of endless possibility that among the billions of ordinary pennies, one might hide that perfect, priceless example that numismatists dream of. Videos and documentaries explore the hidden wealth in old jars, inspiring millions to search their drawers and attics for forgotten treasure. The light glints again across the copper surface as the voice of the narrator draws the listener deeper into the labyrinth of value. Somewhere in the world, a collector opens a small velvet pouch and spills its contents across a table. Among the dull brown pennies of everyday life, one glows faintly red, its surface smoother, its details sharper. That is how it always begins, with curiosity, with a spark of recognition that perhaps this coin is different. For the 1973 1-cent piece, such discoveries have been made countless times, in forgotten rolls purchased decades ago, in inherited collections, even in the change jar that sat untouched on a windowsill. The journey from pocket change to prized artifact is not a straight path, it is a web of human attention, chance, and hope. The modern market that surrounds the 1973 cent is a living organism. Dealers and collectors gather at conventions under fluorescent lights, their tables filled with rows of graded coins sealed in clear plastic. At these gatherings, stories pass from mouth to mouth, stories of spectacular finds, of coins graded at the highest levels, of elusive varieties that appear once in a generation. The market breathes through such stories, its pulse quickened by rarity and desire. The 1973 cent, common in numbers yet uncommon in perfection, thrives in this environment. Its story mirrors that of countless other coins, yet somehow shines brighter because it stands at the intersection of two eras, the end of the pure copper tradition and the dawn of modern numismatics. When an auction catalog lists a 1973 cent graded MS68 red, collectors notice. The description will be lyrical, brilliant crimson surfaces, flawless fields, sharp strike, no visible marks under magnification. The bidding begins modestly but quickly rises, the crowd alive with tension. Each incremental bid represents not only money but reverence for craftsmanship, history, and scarcity. A coin once worth a single cent climbs into the hundreds, the thousands, and occasionally higher. The auctioneer's gavel falls, the crowd exhales, and a small circle of copper changes hands, its value renewed by human fascination. In these moments, the legend of astronomical worth of billions whispered in wonder finds its symbolic truth. For the penny's real value lies not in metal or market but in imagination itself. Outside the auction halls, in the quiet study of a numismatist, the examination of a 1973 cent becomes almost ritualistic. The collector dons cotton gloves, adjusts the magnifier, and lets the coin rest under a lamp. Light travels across the surface, revealing microtextures invisible to the naked eye. The observer notes the die flow lines, the minute doubling in the date, the alignment of rim and lettering. Each observation becomes a meditation on precision. The coin is not only an object but a document, a record of the machinery that produced it, the pressure of dies, the purity of metal, the stability of design. Every flaw tells of a moment in the mint when something shifted by a fraction of a millimeter, altering the outcome forever. It is within these flaws that collectors find beauty. In recent decades, advanced imaging technology has given numismatics a new lens. High-resolution photography, spectral analysis, and digital microscopy reveal layers of information once hidden. Under these instruments, a 1973 cent transforms into a landscape, peaks and valleys of copper, ridges that catch the light like mountain ranges, fields that shimmer like sand. Scientists can even trace the chemical composition of the alloy, confirming the precise blend of copper and zinc that defined the cent of that era. Such analysis deepens the appreciation of what once seemed simple. It is not merely a coin but a miniature artifact of engineering, shaped by heat, pressure, and design, an industrial miracle performed billions of times with remarkable consistency. Yet, within that consistency lies the occasional anomaly. Among the 1973 cents, collectors have identified a range of mint errors that heighten their allure. Some coins display off-center strikes where the design drifts toward the rim, leaving a crescent of blank metal on one side. Others show die breaks, raised lines where the metal filled cracks in a worn die, creating unique patterns. In these irregularities, the human element of minting becomes visible. Beyond the technical and scientific aspects, the 1973 penny invites reflection on the philosophy of value itself. How does a coin, mass-produced by the billions, acquire emotional and financial worth far beyond its intended use? The answer lies in the human mind's ability to assign meaning. A coin is worth 1 cent by law, but to a collector, it represents craftsmanship, memory, and rarity. When people speak of a coin being worth millions or billions, they are expressing awe at this transformation, the way thought and culture can elevate metal into myth. In that sense, the legendary valuation of $4,800 million is not literal currency but symbolic magnitude, the imagination's way of acknowledging the infinite fascination that one small coin can evoke. The 1973 penny also carries within it the shadow of transition. Just a decade later, in 1982, the U.S. Mint would change the composition of the cent from copper to zinc with a thin copper plating. That shift marked the end of an era that had begun in the early 19th century. The 1973 issue thus stands as one of the last generations of true copper cents, heavy and enduring. For collectors, this historical boundary gives the coin added resonance. It belongs to the age when the metal's intrinsic value still approached its face value, when each cent had weight and substance. To hold it is to feel the density of history before it was reduced to veneer. Over the years, countless people have turned to coin collecting as a way to connect with time itself. In basements and attics, families sort through jars of pennies, searching for dates, mint marks, and mysteries. Among those countless searches, the 1973 cent frequently appears, its date a reminder of mid-century America, of music, cinema, and quiet optimism. Many collectors recall finding their first uncirculated 1973 penny in a bankroll or a mint set, its color glowing like new metal from another age. Such discoveries often spark lifelong passions. A child who finds beauty in a single copper coin may grow into an adult who studies history, economics, or art, all because of that first glimmer. The value of these coins also evolves with public awareness. Media coverage of rare finds, news stories about error coins sold for extraordinary sums, fuels waves of interest. Each headline sends a new generation to search their change. Videos and documentaries explore the secrets of Lincoln cents, blending history with suspense. In these narratives, the 1973 issue plays its part as a symbol of hidden fortune. Viewers are reminded that sometimes the extraordinary hides in plain sight, that the most valuable things are those we overlook. The penny becomes both metaphor and reality, a lesson in attention and curiosity. In the broader history of coinage, the Lincoln cent has achieved something rare, continuity across more than a century. Few nations maintain a single portrait for so long. This continuity gives the 1973 issue an added layer of significance. It is part of an unbroken lineage that began with the centennial of Lincoln's birth in 1909, survived 2 world wars, and continues into the digital age. The same face that once circulated through the hands of soldiers in Europe later passed through the fingers of astronauts, children, students, and workers. The 1973 cent, struck amid economic uncertainty and political change, preserves a snapshot of that continuity, a promise that even as the world transforms, certain symbols endure. Numismatic scholars often describe coins as mirrors of civilization. The 1973 penny reflects an America poised between tradition and transformation. Its copper gleam speaks of industry and resource, its design of reverence and stability. Yet within its creation lay the seeds of modernization, the mechanization of production, the precision of automated quality control, the rise of digital record-keeping at the mint. In studying the coin, one studies the evolution of the nation itself. Every contour of Lincoln's profile was shaped not only by artistic intention but by the technology of its time. Each year's strike becomes a document of progress, written not in ink but in metal. When the documentary camera pans across archival footage of the U.S. Mint in 1973, we see workers in uniforms, conveyors laden with shining discs, mechanical arms stacking coins by the thousands. The sound of clanging echoes like industrial music. Narration flows softly above the noise, reminding viewers that each coin carries within it the story of labor and ingenuity. The screen fades in from darkness, revealing a slow-motion shot of copper coins tumbling in a gentle cascade, their edges flashing under a beam of warm light. The sound of metal clinking against metal merges with a quiet orchestral swell, as the narrator's voice returns, calm and resonant, tracing the thread of memory that began more than 50 years ago. The 1973 Lincoln cent has now become more than an object of study, it has become a symbol of endurance. As the decades pass, its meaning deepens, like the gradual darkening of copper itself. In every collection, there are coins that anchor the collector's sense of purpose, pieces that embody why the pursuit began. For many, the 1973 penny serves this role. It is not rare in the traditional sense, yet it possesses a quiet magnetism. Each time it is examined, something new reveals itself, the gentle slope of Lincoln's shoulder, the fine grain on the memorial steps, the subtle curve of lettering that hints at the immense force required to strike metal into art. These details remind us that every coin, even one produced by machines, carries within it the breath of human intention. The engravers, technicians, and designers who worked in the mints of that era could not have imagined that decades later their everyday labor would be celebrated, studied, and even mythologized. The myth, in truth, began not with the coin itself but with human imagination. When collectors speak of astronomical values, numbers like 4,800 million, they are expressing the emotional intensity that a simple artifact can evoke. The figure is poetic, a way to capture the sense of wonder that arises when something ordinary becomes extraordinary. In this sense, the coin's immense value reflects not its price in the marketplace, but the magnitude of attention it commands. It becomes a mirror for curiosity, a measure of how deeply people yearn to find meaning and treasure in the tangible world. As the narrative moves forward, the film visits museums and private collections, where the 1973 cent rests under glass, illuminated by soft light. In these quiet spaces, visitors lean close, peering through reflections to glimpse the tiny portrait that has watched over generations. The copper gleam seems almost alive under the controlled lighting, its color ranging from deep red to auburn, brown, and finally a near-black patina that speaks of time. Curators explain how environmental conditions shape this transformation: humidity, oxygen, and human touch combine to create a surface chemistry unique to each coin. The very act of aging becomes part of its biography. Each spot in tone records years of existence, the coin's surface a map of experience. Outside the museum, in the vast digital world, the 1973 cent continues to circulate, no longer through hands, but through images and stories shared online. High-definition photographs reveal its details with microscopic clarity, videos describe its history in reverent tones. Viewers across continents pause their scrolling to listen to tales of a copper coin once worth a penny, now worth far more in memory. They imagine finding one themselves, tucked away in a forgotten drawer, a piece of the past hiding in the present. In these moments, the coin transcends its physical limits. It becomes an idea, a reminder that history is still within reach, waiting to be discovered. The film lingers on close-ups of mint marks. The small D of Denver, crisp and deliberate, struck into the metal just beneath the date. The elegant S of San Francisco, reserved for proofs that gleam like mirrors. Each letter tells its own story of place and purpose. The Philadelphia Mint, traditionally markless, contributes its anonymity to the whole, producing billions of cents without signature, as if to remind us that anonymity itself can be noble. Together, these three letters form a geographic triangle across the nation, a silent cartography of American industry. The 1973 issue thus becomes not a single coin, but a network of places, people, and machines united by craft. Collectors know that perfection in coinage is a fragile illusion. The smallest dust particle on a die, the faintest misalignment of pressure, the tiniest trace of oxidation, all can alter the surface forever. Yet it is precisely this fragility that makes the pursuit meaningful. When a collector finds a 1973 cent preserved in flawless condition, untouched by time, it feels almost miraculous. To capture that moment, grading agencies enclose such coins in clear slabs, sealing them from the air. Labels mark their grade, and serial numbers connect them to global databases. Through this ritual, human beings attempt to resist entropy, to preserve beauty against decay. The plastic case becomes a time capsule. Inside it, copper remains eternally young, but even sealed perfection cannot stop imagination. In quiet corners of the internet, discussions bloom around every rumor of new discoveries: a double die in the word liberty, an off-metal strike on a lighter planchet, a mirror-finished circulation strike mistaken for a proof. Each rumor ignites curiosity, sending hobbyists back to their collections with magnifiers and lamps. The 1973 penny becomes a catalyst for exploration, teaching patience and attention to detail. Some find only ordinary examples, but even in disappointment there is satisfaction, the realization that the act of searching itself connects one to history. The camera cuts to the industrial past again, archival footage of rolling mills flattening copper ingots into sheets, of blanking machines punching perfect circles from glowing metal. Sparks fly as the sheets cool, conveyor belts hum as blank planchets travel toward the presses. The rhythmic hiss of pneumatic machinery forms a mechanical heartbeat. Each coin is struck with a force of over 60 tons, imprinting Lincoln's likeness in an instant of precision. Millions follow, indistinguishable in their infancy, yet destined for vastly different fates. Some will shine in collections, some will fade in circulation, and a few will vanish into legend. When the narrator speaks his name, there is a brief pause, as though the film itself pays silent tribute, and numismatic experts describe the subtle differences that make each minting year distinct. In 1973, certain dies showed slightly thicker lettering, others a gentler curve in the numeral 3. These minute variations become the foundation for entire studies, where collectors trace die progressions like genealogists tracing family trees. Such scholarship transforms hobby into science, linking observation with historical documentation. The result is a deeper understanding not only of coins but of the precision required to sustain a nation's currency. Every imperfection becomes data, every discovery a small victory for human curiosity. The market continues to evolve. Online auctions display graded 1973 cents reaching surprising prices, while others remain affordable, inviting new collectors to begin their journey. The mythic figures quoted in stories, millions, billions, serve as inspiration rather than expectation. They remind viewers that value is created by attention and care. The camera cuts to a young collector holding a magnifying glass, examining his first coin album. His eyes widen as he places a gleaming 1973 cent into a labeled slot. It fits perfectly, completing a page of dates stretching back to the 1960s. For him, this moment is priceless. For the audience, it is a reflection of how meaning is born. The narrator speaks of time as the greatest artist. Copper darkens, legends soften, and designs evolve, but meaning accumulates. The 1973 penny, once unnoticed, has now passed through enough years to become historical. It stands as a witness to half a century of change, the end of an industrial era, the beginning of the digital age. Its survival reminds us that even in a world of fleeting technology, tangible things endure. The feel of metal between fingers, the weight of a coin resting in the palm, these sensations connect generations. The coin thus becomes more than artifact, it becomes continuity itself. In the final sequences of this chapter, the camera glides over a vast collection arranged like a galaxy of copper stars. Each coin reflects a glimmer of light, each one a moment captured from history. The voice of the narrator softens, almost merging with the music. He speaks of the countless hands that have touched these coins, the countless stories they have silently witnessed. From factory workers to collectors, from merchants to dreamers, all are linked through this single object. The penny, he says, is proof that the smallest things can carry the largest stories. The screen awakens from darkness once more. A thin beam of golden light glides across the surface of a copper coin resting on an antique wooden table. Dust floats in the air, shimmering like particles of time. The music is faint now, a low hum, almost like memory itself breathing. The narrator's voice returns, gentle yet filled with depth, carrying the weight of history that refuses to fade. The 1973 1-cent coin, though small and humble, has outlived the world that created it. Around it, the decades have turned like the pages of an endless book. Each era has left its mark, not just on the metal, but on the collective consciousness of those who continue to seek meaning within its circle. The copper disc becomes a silent storyteller, holding within its atoms the vibration of an entire age, the echo of 1973, when machines roared and ideas of permanence still felt certain. Time changes everything, even the idea of money. Yet the penny remains. The narrator reflects, in an age where value shifts with every heartbeat of the digital world, there is something profoundly human about holding a piece of metal that refuses to change. The coin's texture, its weight, its imperfections, all are reminders that not all worth can be calculated. The 1973 cent still weighs approximately 3.11 grams, its core a fusion of copper and history. The digits of its year are more than numbers, they are coordinates to a lost moment in America's story. The film transitions to archival images. The year 1973, cars line the highways of a nation in transition, men in white collars, women with quiet determination, a country balancing between the fading optimism of the 1960s and the complicated dawn of modern times. Inflation stirred unease. Technology was beginning to hum louder than tradition. And yet, amidst all that noise, the mint pressed billions of copper cents, their design steady and unchanged. Lincoln's gaze still turned toward the right forward, as though peering into the uncertain future. In the faint light of the Denver Mint, molten metal poured from industrial crucibles, glowing like liquid suns. Technicians, their faces shielded by heavy masks, monitored the process with precision. The copper cooled, hardened, and was rolled into thin strips, destined to be transformed into small rounds of meaning. Each blank planchet was weighed, measured, and prepared for the strike. In that brief instant, the collision of die and metal art was born from industry. The sound of that impact reverberated through time, echoing now in every collector's heart. The narrator continues, to touch a 1973 cent is to touch a fraction of that sound, the heartbeat of the mint itself. The visuals slow again, showing hands carefully lifting coins from trays, examining the crisp lines of Lincoln's portrait. The texture of the die, the exact pressure of the strike, the minute distance between rim and relief, each technical factor is part of the coin's soul. The story of minting becomes a ritual, an act of devotion to precision. As the story unfolds, the film drifts toward the philosophical. Coins, after all, are more than tools of trade, they are the memory of a civilization cast in metal. The 1973 penny, made in an age before digital transactions, represents the physical touch of value, the simple exchange between two human beings. A copper coin passing from palm to palm carries warmth, friction, and a trace of the human fingerprint. The narrator's voice lowers. When we spend a coin, we give away more than metal. We give away a moment of ourselves. Collectors, historians, and dreamers understand this intuitively. The camera shows them in dimly lit rooms surrounded by magnifying glasses and stacks of coin albums. Some of these collectors are elderly, their fingers trembling slightly as they turn the pages. Others are children, just beginning to feel the strange allure of the past. Between them flows an invisible current, the shared wonder that something so small could hold so much story. The 1,973 penny bridges generations, whispering the same message to each: pay attention, for beauty hides in plain sight. The film shifts again to the global stage. Across oceans, collectors in distant countries hold American cents like relics of another empire. In dusty markets and online auctions, these coins circulate again, no longer as currency but as memory. Each 1973 cent, though minted by machine, carries an individual destiny. Some rest in albums behind protective plastic. Others still lie forgotten in drawers, waiting to be found. A few have traveled across continents, carried unknowingly in the pockets of travelers, passed as change, lost, and rediscovered decades later, only to end up in the hands of someone who recognizes their quiet beauty. The narration reflects on the paradox of value. In markets, prices fluctuate. In hearts, meaning does not. While headlines speak of coins worth millions or even billions in mythic exaggeration, the deeper truth lies in the human fascination behind those numbers. The 1973 cent worth $4,800 million in imagination symbolizes the ultimate fantasy of discovery, the dream that something ordinary could suddenly reveal extraordinary worth. The story endures because it mirrors the oldest human desire, to uncover treasure, to transform the mundane into the miraculous. The sequence then moves to laboratories, where scientists examine coins under electron microscopes. Under such magnification, the 1973 penny reveals a terrain of mountains and valleys, microscopic imperfections shaped by force and time. The metal surface looks almost alive, its crystalline structure shimmering with hidden energy. The narrator draws a parallel. Like the human story, the coin's surface is not perfect. It is worn, weathered, and scarred, and therefore beautiful. Slow motion shots of rain falling on an old penny lying in the dirt, the droplets tracing paths over Lincoln's face, washing away years of dust. The narration speaks softly. Each coin, once minted, begins to vanish. And yet, in its slow disappearance, it becomes eternal. The camera lingers on that coin until it glows faintly beneath the rain, a symbol of endurance against the elements. In another scene, a professional grader examines a proof coin under bright white light. The mirrored fields reflect his eyes, doubled and distorted, as though he is staring into two timelines, one in 1973, one in the present. His gloved hand tilts the coin, revealing the shimmering perfection of its surface. Such coins are the highest form of the mint's art, flawless, deliberate, almost divine in their precision. Yet even these perfect specimens are vulnerable to time's touch. The narrator notes that preservation itself is a dialogue with mortality. No collection, no matter how perfect, can halt the slow fading of human memory. The camera drifts to a sunset scene, a collector's desk bathed in golden light, coins scattered across an open book of numismatic history. The narrator's tone turns reflective, almost poetic. The 1973 1-cent coin is more than metal. It is a vessel for time, a heartbeat cast in copper. It carries the fingerprints of history, the breath of industry, the quiet pride of a nation that once believed its smallest currency mattered. The montage that follows spans generations: the mint worker in 1973, a child receiving the coin in the 1980s, a historian studying it in 2005, a YouTuber holding it to the camera in 2025. Decades separate them, but the coin remains unchanged, its silent face watching over the flow of human life. The narrator whispers, the coin sees us all, but it never speaks. Its language is permanence. And then, for a moment, the film slows to stillness. The music drops away. The image focuses on a single 1973 cent resting on an open palm. The hand closes gently, as though protecting something fragile. The voice returns one last time for this part of 50 years have passed, and yet the coin remains a witness to everything, a survivor of time's slow flood. It is not the price that makes it precious, nor the rarity that gives it power. It is the story of human hands, of vision and memory, of how something so small can carry the weight of a world. That, perhaps, is the truest value of all. The hand releases the coin. It falls in slow motion, spinning through a shaft of light, glimmering once more before disappearing into shadow. The screen fades to black. The music fades to a faint echo, like the ringing of a distant mint press. The narrator's voice lingers as a whisper through the darkness. In every coin, there is a heartbeat. In every heartbeat, a story. Darkness lingers for a moment, and then, slowly, a faint light emerges. It reveals shelves lined with coin albums, antique glass cases, and magnifiers resting silently on tables. A faint melody rises, the sound of a cello, deep and resonant, as though echoing through time. The narrator's voice returns, soft but certain, its tone carrying both reverence and reflection. The story of the 1973 1-cent coin is not just about metal, the voice begins. It is about the pulse of time itself, about how value is born, lost, and reborn in the hands of those who care to remember. The scene opens to a quiet study. A historian leans over an old journal filled with minting records and handwritten notes. The year 1973 is circled in fading ink, surrounded by calculations, strike counts, and annotations. His voice joins the narration. We think of coins as unchanging, but every year tells a different story, of machines, of men, of the nation that made them. As his words fade, the camera cuts to the past, archival black and white footage of the Denver Mint. Conveyor belts carry endless streams of glowing copper blanks. Workers move with practiced rhythm, each gesture precise, each movement part of a larger choreography. The narrator continues, each cent that rolled from those presses was a moment captured, an instant where pressure met design, or intention met creation. The focus shifts to the design itself, Abraham Lincoln's face, sculpted decades earlier by Victor David Brenner, still dignified, still unwavering. The narrator's voice reverberates softly. Brenner could never have known that his work, first struck in 1909, would continue to grace coins through generations. Yet it endures, not as decoration, but as devotion. The 1973 cent carries his legacy forward, a quiet salute to memory and leadership. The film then fades into a long tracking shot of coins spread across a table. Their tones range from brilliant red to deep brown, each one reflecting light in a different way. The narrator explains that the patina of copper is a living record, oxygen writing poetry upon metal. Every change in hue tells a story of where a coin has been, the bright orange red of youth, the chocolate brown of maturity, the near black shadow of age. In that transformation, the voice says, we see our own. The documentary slows, letting each word breathe somewhere. A collector speaks quietly. He holds a 1973 penny between his thumb and forefinger, turning it under a lamp. You see that small shine along the edge, he says. That's from being in circulation for only a year or two. You can almost measure time by how the light moves. The camera closes in. We see the faint rim wear, the slight toning that softens the one sharp strike. The narrator returns. Even in imperfection, there is beauty. Even in wear, there is truth. Now, the film drifts to the modern world, the hum of online marketplaces, the bright screens of collectors posting images, trading, discussing, comparing notes. A scrolling montage shows the words 1973D, mint error, proof set, rare penny found. Thousands of voices echo in digital harmony. Some speak of monetary value, others speak of nostalgia. The narrator observes, the modern market has turned into a great digital museum, a place where every discovery, real or imagined, becomes part of the story. The myth of unimaginable worth $4.8 billion is no longer a literal price but a symbol. The narrator explains, the number, fantastic as it sounds, reveals a deeper truth, that the dream of discovery never dies. The myth of the billion-dollar penny captures our eternal hope that the ordinary can still hide extraordinary secrets. A slow montage begins, collectors at work under bright lamps, gloved hands turning coins, loop lenses reflecting light like tiny moons. The sound of a heartbeat merges with the clinking of metal. Some chase value, the voice continues, others chase meaning. Yet all are united by the same impulse, to hold a piece of time and to call it their own. The film transitions to a panoramic shot of the U.S. Mint's Visitor Center, where the original dies used for Lincoln cents are displayed behind glass. The narrator speaks with reverence, these are the tools that shaped memory, steel faces that pressed copper into immortality. Here, art met machinery, and machinery met time. The story deepens. The narrator reflects on the weight of the coin, 3.11 grams. That small number hides a universe. Each gram represents the balance between material and meaning, between economy and identity. When that composition changed in 1982, when zinc replaced copper, a chapter quietly closed. The 1973 cent became one of the last true echoes of a purer age. The visuals show side-by-side comparisons, the warm glow of a copper 1973 penny and the paler sheen of a modern zinc cent. The contrast is stark, almost melancholic. Copper breathes, the narrator says, it changes, it reacts, it lives. Zinc, by comparison, merely endures. Then, the music grows softer, the tone more contemplative. The camera floats above the faces of Lincoln cents spread across a table 1909, 1914, 1936, 1955, 1969, 1973. The narrator's voice lowers, the Lincoln cent is not just a series of coins. It is a portrait of the American journey, from industrial ambition to modern reflection. Each year is a snapshot of who we were, and who we hope to become. The film slows to a still shot of the 1973 penny resting on an open palm. This one, the voice says, was made in the year when copper still carried weight, when design still whispered of craftsmanship, and when time still moved at the pace of metal. The story widens again, touching philosophy. In a world obsessed with speed, the coin reminds us of slowness. In a world built on digital code, it reminds us of touch. It is the simplest thing, and yet, the most profound, a circle of metal, a symbol of exchange, a fragment of our shared humanity. As the narration deepens, the visuals show parallel lives, a young man discovering a coin in his grandmother's box, a historian cataloging specimens in a museum, a machinist polishing a die at the mint, a child counting pennies in a jar by lamplight. The voice ties them together, they are all the same story, told through different hands. The coin connects them, an unbroken thread of curiosity stretching across generations. The camera now glides across time once more. We see the world change, newspapers turn digital, coins give way to cards, cards give way to invisible transactions. Yet the penny remains, resting quietly in drawers, pockets, and collections. The narrator pauses, then says softly, everything evolves, but meaning does not vanish. It only hides, waiting for someone to find it again. The music swells faintly, the strings carrying emotion that words cannot. The narrator continues, the 1973 cent is worth more than its face, more than its legend, more even than its metal. It is worth the attention it commands, the fascination it inspires, the stories it keeps alive. In that sense, perhaps it truly is priceless. The film moves toward a closing rhythm. The sun sets behind an old mint building, the sky glowing the color of aged copper. Shadows stretch across the ground like time itself reaching forward. The narrator concludes the part with words that linger like the last echo of a struck coin, and the 1973 1-cent coin may never buy a loaf of bread again, but it will forever purchase something far greater, remembrance. For as long as we hold a piece of ourselves, a reminder that even the smallest things can carry infinite worth. The screen fades to black. A single sound remains, the soft, rhythmic tick of a clock, each second marking another moment that the 1973 penny continues to outlast. A low hum rises, like wind passing through an empty hall. The screen is dark at first, then a dim copper glow begins to spread, revealing the faint outline of a coin turning slowly in midair. It rotates without sound, each revolution catching a different glint of light. The narrator speaks, the voice now older, quieter, almost like memory itself. Every generation inherits a handful of objects that outlive the hands that made them. The 1973 cent is one of those objects, a survivor not because it sought survival, but because it was built with care. The music swells gently. Images fade in, copper veins in rock, molten metal pouring in ancient foundries, hands polishing dies in the 20th century mint. Then the camera pulls back to show modern skyscrapers gleaming above, screens flashing numbers, data, digital currencies moving at invisible speed. The contrast is striking, one world of touch and heat, another of light and code. The narrator continues, in this new world of weightless value, the old coin feels almost human. It rusts, it changes color, it bears scars. It reminds us that time is real. A montage begins, close-ups of different 1973 cents, one flawless and bright in its holder, one green with oxidation, one worn smooth from decades of pockets and counters. The voice explains how each one tells a separate story. No two are identical. The same die, the same year, the same design, and yet each carries its own journey. Just like us. The music softens to a single piano note repeating slowly. The visuals drift through homes, workshops, museums. In one scene, a grandfather teaches his granddaughter how to look for mint marks. She turns the coin beneath a lamp, her eyes widen. That tiny D, he says, means it was made in Denver. A long way from here. The camera lingers on her face, the reflection of the penny glowing in her pupils. The voiceover, this is how history travels, not through textbooks, but through hands. Cut to a vast field at dawn. A metal detector hums as a hobbyist sweeps it over the soil. The sound beeps softly, then he kneels, brushes away dirt, and lifts a darkened coin from the earth. He rubs it gently, revealing Lincoln's faint outline. The narrator whispers, even when forgotten, the coin waits. The earth keeps it safe until curiosity returns to find it again. Then, silence, broken only by birdsong and the faint clinking of coins in a jar. The narrator resumes, reflective, why do we care? Perhaps because coins are promises cast in metal. They promise stability in a world that changes too fast. They promise that memory can be held. The scene shifts to a classroom. A teacher places several pennies on a desk, asking students to arrange them by date. The camera moves over small fingers sorting the coins. The children laugh when they find the oldest one, 1973. It's older than my parents, one says. Laughter fades into the soft sound of the narrator again, and yet it shines. Because the past, when touched, feels young again. The film turns philosophical. The narrator muses on the symbolism of the circle, the coin's shape without beginning or end. The circle is the oldest human design. It is the shape of the sun, the eye, the wheel, the coin. It means continuity. It means return. As these words echo, the camera follows the coin's curve closely, the rim becoming a horizon line. It transforms into the edge of the moon, then back into copper again. The message is clear, all things connect. A quiet interlude follows, time-lapse footage of copper oxidizing, bright orange fading to deep brown, then dark green. The colors shift like seasons. The narrator explains that copper never truly dies, it only changes state. It breathes with the air, reacts with water, becomes something new, yet keeps its essence. So does memory. The visuals return to the portrait of Lincoln. The narrator lingers on his expression, speaking almost to him. You have watched us for more than a century. Through wars, recessions, celebrations, inventions. You have watched our hands grow more distant from the things they make. Yet still, we keep your face close, in pockets, jars, drawers, because we need reminders of constancy. The music builds slightly, strings joining the piano. The camera moves through decades in seconds, 1973 gas stations, 1980s diners, 1990s classrooms, 2000s collections, 2020s digital screens. The penny appears in each scene, always present, always humble, then the voice deepens. Every coin is a lesson in patience. It tells us that worth is not in speed, but in staying. That history is not a straight line, but a circle we keep tracing with every exchange. A sudden cut to a modern city street at night. Neon signs, flashing advertisements, people tapping phones to pay. Amid the bustle, a small child drops a coin. It bounces once, twice, and rolls into a crack of the pavement. The crowd moves on. The camera lingers on that gap, where the copper glints faintly in the light. The narrator whispers, and yet, even here, it waits. The tempo slows. Images of the mint reappear, machines silent now, a museum built around them. A curator walks between displays, her footsteps echoing. She stops at a case containing a 1973 proof set. The glass reflects her face and the coins equally. The reflection, says the narrator, is the point. The coin shows us ourselves, how we measure value, how we imagine permanence, how we chase meaning in metal. The next sequence is abstract, soft, dreamlike. The coin drifts through water, light bending around it. Voices from earlier parts of the film overlap faintly, collectors, historians, children, economists. Their words blur into a chorus about worth, memory, and time, then, clarity returns. The coin lies on a white cloth. A beam of sunlight crosses it. The narrator says, someday, even this coin will fade completely, dissolved by time. But by then, it will have done its work. It will have reminded us that small things can last longer than empires. The music fades to near silence. A heartbeat sound returns, slow, steady. The narrator's final words for this part are almost whispered, hold a coin, and you hold a pulse. Listen closely, and you'll hear centuries speaking, not loudly, not with grandeur, but with patience. That is the sound of the 1973 penny. That is the sound of everything we choose to remember. The screen fades to black, leaving only that single heartbeat echoing softly into silence. The screen remains black for a moment, the faint heartbeat echoing from part 7 fading slowly into stillness. Then, a single spark of copper light flickers in the darkness. It grows, unfolding like dawn, until the faint curve of the 1973 Lincoln cent emerges once more, suspended in the air. The narrator's voice returns, softer now, but steady, timeless. There are stories that fade when their tellers are gone. And then there are those that live on in the things they leave behind. The story of the 1973 1-cent coin is one of those quiet survivors, a fragment of a larger conversation between generations, still unfolding after half a century. A warm orchestral tone begins to rise, like morning sunlight breaking through fog. The visuals show the world awakening, city streets glistening with dew, coins resting on windowsills, a cash register opening in a small town shop. The narrator continues, when the first of these coins left the mint, the world was different. A gallon of gas was 39 cents. A loaf of bread was 27. And yet even then, people wondered whether the penny's days were numbered. 50 years later, it is still here, outlasting the headlines that questioned its purpose. The scene shifts to a museum archive. Rows of labeled drawers, careful hands pulling out folders. Inside are mint records, designs, copper sheets. The voice describes the unseen effort behind each coin. Every cent begins with intention. Sheets of copper-plated zinc, precisely cut, weighed, and inspected. Dies engraved with the face of Lincoln, his eyes aligned to a fraction of a millimeter. Machines striking thousands per minute, yet each impact a promise of accuracy. Behind that precision lies a quiet reverence, the belief that even the smallest object deserves perfection. Slow motion footage shows molten copper cooling into blanks. The glow fades, replaced by the mirror-like surface of the finished coin. In that transformation, the narrator reflects, we see the story of human progress, from ore to art, from raw matter to meaning. A new scene fades in, a collector's table illuminated by a desk lamp. Magnifying glass, gloves, a coin book open to 1973. The collector lifts a single cent with tweezers, examining the mint mark. His voice overlaps the narrator's in a whisper, D. Denver. The narrator answers gently, yes, Denver. One of the millions, and yet one of a kind. The film slows its rhythm. The visual shift to abstract memories, children counting coins in 1973, a vending machine accepting a penny, a newspaper headline showing Lincoln's face beside an article about inflation. The music grows more emotional, strings carrying a sense of nostalgia. Each coin, says the voice, passed through countless lives. From the palms of workers to the counters of shops, from pockets to piggy banks, from generation to generation. Each transfer left an invisible fingerprint, a history no microscope can see, but every soul can feel. A close-up shows a worn 1973 cent, its edges smooth, the date barely visible. The camera glides across its surface as though it were a landscape. Look closely, the narrator whispers. The scratches are not damage. They are stories. A soft sound of wind begins, mixed with faint echoes of laughter, conversation, cash registers, fragments of life. The voice continues, sometimes, we forget that value is not measured in rarity or price alone. It is measured in endurance, in the quiet way an object resists oblivion. The visual shift again, side-by-side comparisons of rare 1973 errors and regular strikes, microscopic details highlighted, double dies, off-center strikes, proof finishes gleaming like mirrors. The narrator explains, for collectors, these differences are treasure. But for history, each one perfect or flawed carries equal weight. Because history values presence more than perfection. A pause. The music thins out, leaving only the hum of a distant choir. And yet, the voice says softly, some of these coins became something greater. A few, preserved in flawless condition, came to embody extraordinary worth, millions, even billions, in symbolic value. Not because of metal or market, but because of meaning. Because they remind us of a time when craftsmanship mattered, when permanence was a dream humanity could hold in its hand. The visuals turn dreamlike again, the coin floating in darkness, stars reflecting off its surface. The narrator's voice takes on a philosophical tone. If you listen long enough, every coin speaks. Not in words, but in resonance, the faint echo of all the hands it has touched, all the lives it has passed through. It is the sound of civilization itself, the rhythm of exchange, the heartbeat of trust. Cut to a slow-motion shot of coins falling through water, descending like autumn leaves. The world keeps changing, the narrator continues, but gravity remains. And so does the need for something solid to hold on to. For all our screens and clouds and codes, we still find comfort in the weight of copper. The music rises gently again, strings and piano, patient, tender. The narrator's tone softens, perhaps that is why collectors seek these coins, not merely to own, but to connect. To feel part of something that began before them and will outlast them. The coin becomes a mirror of continuity, small, round, and infinite. The scene transitions to a montage of generations, a young boy in 1973 holding a brand new penny, a middle-aged man in 2003 searching rolls for errors, an elderly woman in 2023 opening a box of coins left by her late husband. She finds a single 1973 cent and smiles faintly. The narrator says, it is not the coin that holds value, but the memory it carries. The camera lingers on her hand, the coin resting against her palm. Her reflection appears faintly in its surface. In her eyes, the voice continues, the coin is not metal. It is time made visible. Silence falls again, followed by a soft heartbeat, the same rhythm from part 7, returning now like a motif. The narrator's voice deepens, this is how history survives. Not in vaults or museums, but in moments of quiet recognition. A child discovering an old coin. A collector marveling at a flawless strike. A dreamer realizing that something so small can outlive entire eras. A sweeping aerial shot of the US Mint appears, the vast complex glinting under sunlight. When the Denver Mint struck these coins, the narrator says, they could not have known how far their creation would travel or how deeply it would be studied, cherished, and mythologized. Yet every press of that die sent a message through time, that precision matters, that symbols endure, that even the smallest piece of metal can hold the weight of a nation's story. Then, gradually, the visuals dissolve into a single close-up of the coin's reverse, the Lincoln Memorial. The camera moves closer and closer until the tiny statue of Lincoln within the memorial becomes visible. The voice speaks reverently, within this image lies a secret Lincoln, forever watching over himself. A man immortalized within his own monument, on a coin meant for everyday use. It is one of the most poetic designs ever struck in metal, the leader who freed millions, now contained within the symbol of freedom itself. The music swells, and the light flares until the screen becomes pure gold. The narrator whispers, that is the miracle of the 1973 cent. It is a relic of craftsmanship, a monument in miniature, a promise in copper. And somewhere within it, the story of humanity itself, our desire to last, to remember, to create meaning from matter. A long pause follows. Then the voice adds, it is said that a coin passes through 1,000 hands in its lifetime. But perhaps, the true journey of a coin begins when it stops moving, when someone decides to keep it, to protect it, to tell its story. The heartbeat slows. The visuals fade into a single frame, a 1973 penny resting on a weathered wooden table, bathed in golden light. Dust particles drift like time itself. The voice, now almost a whisper, concludes part 8. When you hold a coin that has crossed 50 years, you are holding the silence of countless lives. You are holding proof that value is not destroyed by time, it only changes form. The 1973 penny began as currency. It became memory. And now, it is legend. The screen fades to black. The final heartbeat fades away. Only stillness remains, deep, resonant, endless. The black screen lingers for several seconds. Then, faintly, the light of dawn begins to return. Not bright at first, just a breath of color at the edge of darkness. A soft hum builds, the sound of wind moving through an open field. Slowly, the camera fades into the image of the earth turning beneath a rising sun. The narrator's voice, deep and deliberate, emerges once more. The world keeps turning. Years pass, generations come and go, and yet small things endure. Somewhere, in a drawer or a jar or a forgotten box, a 1973 penny lies waiting. It has no urgency, no fear of time. It waits because that is what endurance means, not resistance, but patience. The camera glides through familiar scenes, a farmer's table in the Midwest, a city cafe counter, a quiet attic in an old house. In each place, the coin appears, sometimes bright, sometimes tarnished, each time resting silently as life continues around it. Every penny struck that year carried a whisper of its maker's care. The voice continues. The press of the die, the ring of metal, the precision of the minting, each detail mattered, even when no one was watching. That is the beauty of true craftsmanship, it exists for its own sake. A slow-motion sequence unfolds, copper blanks being struck by the die, flashes of light, mechanical rhythm like a heartbeat. Then the image dissolves into the face of Lincoln, lit by candlelight. Abraham Lincoln's gaze has seen everything, says the narrator. From the trenches of war to the dreams of peace, from the dawn of the industrial age to the edge of the digital one. He remains, unblinking, patient, a symbol of ideals we still struggle to live up to. The music rises softly again, a single cello line, steady and reflective. The visuals move through decades, 1970s factories, 1980s classrooms, 1990s flea markets, 2000s coin conventions. The penny reappears in each frame, changing color, changing hands, yet unchanged in essence. Collectors and dreamers have given it new meanings, the narrator says. Some saw fortune, some nostalgia, some history. But the truth is simpler, it is a reminder. That even the smallest things can become eternal when we choose to remember them. A close-up reveals the texture of the coin's surface under magnification, tiny valleys and ridges that form Lincoln's profile. If you magnify far enough, the narrator murmurs, the coin becomes a landscape, mountains of copper and shadows of time. It is the geography of memory itself. The camera pans upward to reveal a museum gallery. Visitors move slowly past glass cases, their reflections mingling with the coins inside. The narrator continues, we preserve coins not for their price, but for what they represent, continuity, craftsmanship, and the quiet dignity of lasting work. The scene fades to a desk where a historian writes notes in dim light. He pauses, holding a 1973 penny between his fingers, turning it gently as if listening to it. The voice says, in every age, there are those who listen closely enough to hear what the past is saying. The coin speaks to them, not in words, but in weight. The music deepens, a subtle mix of piano and strings. The visuals shift through time again, the year 1973 flashing briefly across the screen, then 1983, 1993, 2003, 2013, 2023. Each decade brings change, technology, fashion, culture, yet the coin remains the same. Half a century later, the narrator reflects, the penny stands as a paradox. Its material worth is almost nothing. Yet its symbolic worth is beyond measure. It is proof that meaning is not determined by market, but by memory. The tone becomes philosophical again. We live in a time where numbers rise and fall on screens, currencies without weight, transactions without touch. But hold a penny, and you hold the opposite of all that. You hold something real, something that carries the warmth of the world that made it. The film slows. A close-up shows a person's thumb brushing across the date, 1973, worn but still clear. The narrator whispers, every scratch, every mark, every fade of color tells the truth, that time changes everything, but not the essence of what was made with care. A moment of stillness follows. Then the screen shows a child holding the same penny, his reflection shining faintly in its surface. The voice says softly, and so the story continues, one hand to the next, one lifetime to another. The penny moves through time like a small echo of our own persistence. A montage begins again, countless hands exchanging coins across decades. Some old, some young, some rich, some poor. The penny unites us in ways we rarely notice, the narrator continues. It is shared silently between strangers, unnoticed but constant, the background rhythm of a civilization built on trust. The music rises with emotion now, filling the silence like breath. And perhaps that is why, even today, the story of the 1973 penny captivates us. Not because it is rare, but because it endures. It reminds us that everything, even value, is a story we agree to tell together. The visuals grow dreamlike once again, the coin spinning in slow motion, its reflection turning into light, dissolving into stars. The voice deepens, almost a whisper from the fires of the mint to the poems of children, from collectors' vaults to forgotten drawers, the journey of the penny is the journey of time itself. Every rotation of its edge marks another heartbeat of the world. The stars fade into a close-up of the coin's reverse, the Lincoln Memorial glowing faintly as if alive. The narrator says, within that image, Lincoln sits eternal, not carved in marble, not struck in copper, but remembered in spirit. The penny is his echo, passed from generation to generation, asking us to keep faith in simple things. The camera slowly pulls back. The coin lies at the center of a dark wooden table, surrounded by faint light. Dust drifts through the air. The music fades to a single soft piano note, then the voice concludes part 9 with quiet reverence. When we speak of value, we often mean price. But true value is the story that remains when the numbers are gone. The 1973 penny began as a coin, became a relic, and lives on as a symbol of endurance, of memory, of everything small and humble that survives the passage of time. In its copper heart lies a reflection of our own worn, imperfect, yet shining still. The last piano note lingers, then fades into silence. The screen darkens once more, leaving only a faint copper glow, as if the coin's light remains even after the story ends. The screen opens in darkness. No sound. Then a single ray of golden light falls gently upon the worn face of a 1973 Lincoln Cent resting on an aged wooden surface. Dust swirls through the beam like fragments of history suspended in air. The narrator's voice returns, deeper now, slower, almost like a whisper from beyond time. In every age, humanity leaves behind small testaments, objects that speak when we are silent. The 1973 penny is one such testament. It was never meant to be extraordinary, yet through time, it became something more, a symbol of endurance, humility, and memory. Soft orchestral music begins, a tender mix of piano, strings, and faint choral voices, distant and timeless. The camera slowly circles the coin, like gliding across its surface. 50 years ago, the narrator continues, this coin was struck in Denver, in Philadelphia, in San Francisco, one of billions. It entered the world quietly, uncelebrated. It passed from hand to hand in the rhythm of daily life. But as decades passed, and the world raced faster, it remained, still copper, still constant, still a small circle of meaning in a restless age. The camera shifts through time again. Archival footage of the 1970s plays faintly, men workers inspecting rolls of fresh coins, copper sheets sliding along machinery, families paying for groceries with change, children placing pennies on railroad tracks. The narrator speaks gently, each of those moments left a trace. The sound of metal striking metal, the glint of light off polished copper, the laughter of a child holding his first coin. All of it became part of the story. Not a story written in books, but in lives, ordinary lives that gave this coin its immortality. The visuals fade into the modern world, self-checkouts, digital wallets, invisible transactions. The coin now lies almost forgotten in a drawer. And yet, says the voice, it remains. Because the world, no matter how advanced, still hungers for touch, for something real, something that carries the warmth of human time. The music softens, the tempo slowing. The narrator continues, in 1973, the penny weighed 3.11 grams, pure copper, heavy enough to feel real between the fingers. That weight is more than metal. It is the weight of memory, the gravity of craftsmanship. It is proof that even the smallest creation can bear the full measure of human care. Close-up shots glide across the coin's details, the crisp lettering, the motto "In God We Trust," the year 1973, and the faint mark of Lincoln's eye. Look closely, the voice whispers. This is not just design. It is devotion. Every curve, every ridge, every reflection was chosen. Even in the smallest unit of currency, there was intention, a belief that beauty belonged to everyone. A long pause follows. The sound of wind moves faintly across the speakers. The camera pans upward to reveal the sky, clouds drifting slowly, sunlight shimmering through time. The narrator says, the penny became more than money. It became memory itself. Each one carried the fingerprint of a nation, its hopes, its labors, its passage through history. In its silence, it recorded the sound of centuries. The visuals turn dreamlike again, the coin floating slowly through space, surrounded by light. Value, says the voice, is not a number written by markets. It is a pulse that survives forgetting. A 1973 cent may be worth millions in rarity, but its true worth lies in what it reminds us, that permanence is not wealth. It is care. It is continuity. It is the promise that something made with purpose will never truly vanish. The music grows richer now, layers of strings and distant choir harmonies swelling together like the rising of a tide. Images of generations fill the screen, children holding coins, old hands passing them down, collectors admiring them beneath magnifying lamps. From one hand to the next, the voice continues, the coin travels through time like a message, unbroken, unspoken, yet deeply understood. It tells us that what we create with sincerity outlives us. The visuals shift to the interior of the U.S. Mint, modern and gleaming. Robotic presses strike new coins. The narrator observes, machines now do what human hands once did. Precision has increased, but something has been lost, the quiet rhythm of human touch. Yet even now, each coin that leaves these walls carries that same ancient wish, to last. The music quiets to a single, soft piano melody. The narrator's voice becomes almost meditative. When a collector holds a 1973 penny in perfect condition, they do not see metal. They see time. They see the breath of the maker, the hand of the minter, the faces of those who once spent it, saved it, and loved it. It is not money. It is memory, minted in copper. The camera focuses again on the coin's reverse, the Lincoln Memorial. Slowly, the image transforms. The pillars of the memorial turn into trees, the statue into a distant silhouette walking into light. Inside that monument, the narrator whispers, sits the memory of a man who believed that nations could endure through unity, that freedom could outlast fear. The coin carries that belief still, quiet, constant, indestructible. The music swells to its emotional peak. The coin begins to rise slowly, spinning gently as light envelopes it. The voice grows softer, reverent, someday, long after we are gone, someone else will find this coin. They will hold it up to the light, and wonder who once touched it. They will see the date 1973, and feel the echo of our century, our hopes, our dreams. In that moment, time will collapse. Past and present will meet in the curve of copper. The visuals now show vast landscapes, mountains, rivers, cities, the sea. As the narrator's tone deepens to its final reflection, perhaps that is what immortality truly means, not living forever, but being remembered through the things we create. The 1973 penny, worth only a cent in its birth, became priceless through endurance. It reminds us that greatness is not always loud. Sometimes, it is small. Sometimes, it fits in the palm of your hand. A slow fade to black. The music thins until only a single heartbeat remains faint, steady. The narrator speaks one last time. Hold a coin. Feel its weight. Listen to its silence. Within that silence lives everything we have ever built, every dream we have ever dared to pass forward. The 1973 penny is not just a coin, it is us. It is the story of how something small became eternal. The final piano chord lingers, then fades completely. The screen remains black for several seconds, until a single copper glow reappears at the center, faint, pulsing, alive, then, silence, and the story ends.